All right, so this is kind of a brainstorm idea, and the only reason I am going to post it here is because I think it's time to start to pull up stakes. I'm taking cues from Andrew Torba over at Gab, who says we need to create our own ecosystems. And you don't have to be Christian, conservative, any of those things to participate in creating your own solutions to these problems. We all know that Merrick Garland, who is the selected Attorney General, is putting moms on a terrorist watch list now. These are moms that are attending the school board. I have gotten involved a little bit in my county school board, and it's a bureaucratic, administrative, political circus. And if you can get past and through the rhetoric to like the meat of what they're talking about, your eyes have probably already glazed over and you're probably useless as a human being at that point. So, I don't know. I don't see a lot of long-term benefit fighting CRT, fighting all of the flat out perverted things that they're teaching kids, that they're allowing kids to read, things that aren't age appropriate. And I don't care how enlightened you are, just shut up. Okay. It's supposed to be about reading, math, and science, and reading things that are educational, not grooming them for a life of, I don't even want to say, but I think you know where I'm going with this. I think what I'm going to suggest is a very libertarian idea. If you're kind of libertarian-ish and you watch this channel, maybe you should pass this along. So there are probably, I don't know, how many churches are in your town? And how active are those churches during the week? Other than, you might have a church that does like a Wednesday night Bible study. Obviously, Sunday, the church is open and kind of busy. That's just Sunday morning, by the way. And you might have a couple of, like your Catholic churches tend to have mass a lot. I think they have daily mass, right? So they may be a bit more difficult to use. What I'm suggesting here is that with all of the problems that people are experiencing with their local school boards, with federalized education, which needs to be abolished, the Department of Education needs to be abolished. I would say even some state boards of education and, the kind of the junior Department of Education needs to be abolished. If your town wants to have some kind of a committee that decides things and they have control and they're not getting money from state or local. Now, when I say state, I mean politicians who craft certain legislation, which then is like a funding source for the school, not like the regular state budget, which, people can obviously vote for the funding for, to fund public schools. I get that. But there are always going to be strings attached. And with education, it seems as though local is better. It seems as though more decentralized, the better. Getting away from federalized textbooks, getting away from standardized testing, which just teaches kids to study for a test and be really good at studying for that test and answering those questions one time, and then probably forgetting most of the material within a week or two. I mean, these are all truths, and if you want to deny them, well, you'll need a little bit more evidence than maybe I've read about or I've seen, but that's the general conclusion. Churches are empty during the week. Homeschool groups need places to meet, right? Some of these churches have huge facilities. And yes, they may incur additional maintenance costs and heating and cooling and certain things. I get that. But, good thing to ask the congregation on Sunday. So we're about to open up our church to homeschool groups, micro schooling, whatever you want to call it, where, somebody has agreed to be the teacher and they're going to teach these kids and they'll get paid. And here's the other thing too, from the standpoint of being very sort of off the grid, entrepreneurial, say you pay the teacher $50 a week to educate your kids. And she's got 20 kids in her class. And she spends, 40 weeks a year teaching them. I'll just throw these numbers out there. So she would earn about $40,000 a year. And by the way, if that's an agreement between you and that person, that's an off-the-grid transaction. Now, I'm not saying that, the teacher doesn't claim her earnings, because that would be horrible, right? That would be going against the law. Remember, Jesus wasn't too fond of tax collectors. Just putting it out there. Again, give Caesar what's Caesar's and give God what is God's, right? So anyway, I think it's an interesting thing. How many churches are in your town? See, this would be the solution. Say you're a teacher, right? And they're about to fire you because you won't do the thing that they want you to do. Bye-bye. First thing you do, hi, I'm Betsy Ross. I also make flags. No, I'm just kidding. I'm Betsy Ross and I'm a teacher. I decided I didn't want bureaucrats and I didn't want Joe Biden and I didn't want the health department telling me what to do with my life. So I'm available to teach. I'd like to build a classroom of, 10 students, 20 students. If you'd be interested, give me a call, see how that works. And then all of a sudden she would probably have more students than she could handle. Now, if she's used to, overcrowded classrooms, then I'm sure she'll have no problem with this, right? Of course, the parents, they're probably going to have to get involved to some degree. Things like transportation, because there'll be no bus to the homeschool church, most likely, unless things get real sophisticated. And say the church says, hey, we want to help these students learn. And the best way we can help them learn is to make the facilities, first class. And maybe there is some kind of an infrastructure where somebody drives the kids around in a bus or a van and brings them to the church school. Now, think about this. There are thousands of empty churches during the week. This would be an educational renaissance. This would be the church doing what the church is kind of called to do in a way, to be salt and light. And you would say, well, that's religious stuff. Well, no, it's generally salt and light. I don't see why this is anything too far outside the purview of what the church ought to be doing. And you're wasting these facilities. Imagine Joel Osteen's church, and I'm being very tongue-in-cheek here. Isn't it like 10,000 seats or something like that? It's like an arena in Houston. He would never do this because he's more concerned about, making people feel good, not challenging them all that much, and, hoping that everybody gets rich. Folks, right now, everybody's kind of poor in a way. We're poor if we don't have freedom. You may have lots of money, but you're poor if you don't have freedom. And if tyranny is beginning to be oppressive and overwhelming, you're not really free if those things are occurring, and they're occurring. So as a workaround, and as somebody who isn't going to take Merrick Garland's decrees and be all afraid and cower, you need to get out of these systems. If it's schooling, you need to find a way out. If it's your work and they're telling you got to do this, this, and this in order to keep working there, you got to go look for. There are a lot of jobs out there. There's no way everybody's going to require you to do the thing. If that's the case, they'll never have enough people. And again, the supply chain is kind of breaking down. So we'll see if the leverage there pushes politicians over to a point where they at least admit, okay, we can't keep making these people do what they don't want to do. You know, I'm not playing Russian roulette. That's why I don't, you know, everybody says, well, just do it. No, I'm after what I know, there's a documentary that's out there that was released yesterday. I'm not going to say the name of it, but there's enough information in that documentary to halt every program, to indict everybody who's involved in this. Most of it is crimes against humanity. Most of it, pretty much all of it. Here's the thing that might excuse a couple of people is that I was just following orders. I thought this was safe. I thought this was the right thing to do. Okay, you might garner a little bit of sympathy from a few people, but long term, you're going to be held accountable, just like they were back in 1940, whatever. They were held accountable. I was just following orders. Is this as bad as that? I don't know. I'm not going to say no, though. Some people would say I'm crazy to even posit that out there and say, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see in a year or two how those stats kind of work out. There are a couple of whistleblowers that are out there that they've got screenshots, they've got data that comes right from the government. It's right there. Okay, right on their website. But I digress. This video is about empowerment. It's about saying you don't have to be defeated. There are workarounds. People in the healthcare industry, they're doing the same thing. They're starting holistic practices where real medicine is practiced rather than petroleum-based, drug-based, chemical-based medicine, or whatever you want to call it, voodoo is practiced, where, you know, once one thing doesn't work, they've got to go out and they've got to create another thing, just like they're doing now. And if one didn't work, then you do 2, 3, and 4. You don't say, maybe we should try a different tact. No, instead you double down, triple down, quadruple down on the thing that it isn't working. It clearly isn't working. And that's insanity. That's the definition of insanity. So again, when it comes to schools, I think this is critical. When it comes to employment, I also think that there's going to be sort of a reorganization. Anything that's attached to the federal government, most of these hospital systems are incentivized by Medicare. Okay. And this is why, if this doesn't push you away from the whole Medicare for all model, there needs to be some kind of maybe critical care policy, safety net policy, maybe, if some people want to buy it. But then you've got to worry about who's administering that critical care, right? Maybe, but after what we've seen the last 18 months, why would you want to expand this and centralize it more and give them more power? That's insanity. If anything, this is going to create a more libertarian approach, an exodus. And libertarians are going to go around and say, we've been saying this for 50 years. Read Atlas Shrugged, right? Where do they all go? They went to Galt's Gulch. Everyone's going to Galt's Gulch. Well, it's time. It's time. Galt's Gulch might be your town. I mean, it's just not one, you know, in the book, it's one place, but in theory, there should be a Galt's Gulch in every county, in every state. And we need to start moving in that direction with education and with dormant churches, that many of which, you know, stayed closed for months and months and months. And imagine if the people who couldn't bring their kids to school were in a micro homeschooling kind of group, and they said, hey, you know, can we use your church? And maybe, again, we pay for the utilities, and maybe that's part of the cost of doing business. I don't know. Or maybe the church, you know, feeling charitable, says, you know, when we take our Sunday offering, we'll see if we can do some fundraising for you guys. Of course, if the church is part of this whole sort of big state takeover of everything, they're going to be so sympathetic to the state, they're probably going to say, no, we do not want to risk anybody's health. So no, we will keep this church closed and we will not allow humans to enter it. Even if they're not the humans that would normally enter it, you guys may leave or be contaminated and leave contaminants behind, and then we can't have church ever again. I mean, I don't know where you go with all this stuff. It's when you start to think it out, these people are they're kind of demonic in a way. They're kind of possessed by something because they don't see any logic in anything. They don't think like I do. I say, okay, here's a problem. So you guys want to make the problem worse. I want to solve the problem using a little bit of common sense, a little bit of independence, a little bit of libertarianism, and say, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not working anyway. Your testing is stupid. Your curriculum is ridiculous. I mean, every mom in America should be outraged. And some moms are really supportive of what the government is doing, but the majority of them are outraged and they're showing up the school board. I would say you need to start putting that energy into developing solutions, long-term solutions to these school boards. If you bankrupt education, in other words, nobody is showing up at these schools, they can't have these huge budgets. And I think even that would start to get reformed a little bit, because the public school people would be like, hey, we can't keep doing this. We can't even attract students to our school. I mean, you can't hire bus drivers because the bus drivers are afraid of the kids. And it's just so many different problems that can be solved, though, by getting the church involved. Or if it's not a church, maybe a different local building. But the church, I'm thinking it's a church building that someone owns, hopefully outright. Right. It's not like you're renting some facility for hundreds or thousands of dollars a month. The church would be more likely to be charitable. And there's even the possibility of tax breaks, although I'm sure if the government finds out people are solving this public education problem on their own, they would immediately take away any kind of a tax break for the church to have kids in their school or in their church, which would become a school. In any event, folks, that's a solution. And those are the kinds of things that we can use to solve these problems. And it also applies to public health, where if you can't trust the public health authorities to treat you for something that that is treatable, that should be treated, if you can't trust them to do that, then you need different administrators, different doctors, different health professionals to get you through. That's really what this is all about. It's decentralizing, it's looking for your own solutions, and it's not waiting for the government cavalry, because what they're waiting for is to control you and to take more power for themselves. And quite honestly, I don't really think they care about anybody other than the people who are in those oligarch-like positions of power. And that even trickles down to your local school board. It's pretty scary. Okay, video done. Please subscribe to the channel. I lose subscribers, I gain subscribers, I lose subscribers. I'd like to get over 7,000 just for kicks. I think I did it at one time and then it went down like 100 and then it's never recovered. So if you can help me out doing that, there's also a link to Patreon if you'd like to contribute to this channel. Maybe $1 a month, maybe for a couple of months you can do it. And then, you know, if you can't, I understand. Things are rough out there. Inflation is crazy. The supply chain is crazy. Those are videos in and of themselves. And eventually I will do them. But for now, we've got to fight back. And this is one way we can do it, using the church to do something with their buildings that are mostly empty.